Starting up the strooms, starting them up the strooms, start them up the strooms, starting them up the strooms. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, twerkers, jerkers, and lurkers, witches, liches, and bitches? It is time once again for Johnston Blackhorse does the Drarwringz with your host, me, Johnston Blackhorse, and I am here to do the Drarwringz. We are nearing the completion of this piece. Not sure if we're going to get done today because there's like other things I need to complete today before tomorrow rolls around. Because tomorrow, me and my mom are going to drive the Escalade to go get new tires in preparation for me going down to Las Vegas to close the account on this storage unit so my sister doesn't have to worry about it anymore because, again, the storage unit has hiked up its prices by like 50%. Used to be $80 a month. Now it's $120 a month. And it's really been draining her account. And I don't remember if she told me before, but I feel like I was unaware. And I guess the issue just kind of like snowballed into like just a dire straits situation. And I had to help out my sister with some money and throw like a bit of money down on the Escalade to try to get it roadworthy enough to make such a long trip. It's operational enough for me to like make like local, like run local tasks, like driving here and there. But to drive like 8 hours, it's generally about like a 8-hour road trip to get down there. In the condition it was in, like I wouldn't have like really trusted it that much to make it that 8 hours. But I think once we get the new tires on it, it'll be fairly like worthy enough to make that 8-hour trip because the tires on it that are on it now are going pretty bald and got a slow leakage issue with one of the wheels. I guess one of the seals around the rim isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And headlights, let me check on the headlight status. Let me see if it is registered as delivered. Nope, it is not here yet. Last it checked is it's in Moab, Utah, and that's the last update that it'll give me, and that was like 1:50 p.m. today. So, it's probably at our local post office right now, and it probably won't make it to my post office box. Well, we got like a small general post office at the gas station, like down the mesa, but the main post office that it's connected to is like in the next like small township over. So I'm thinking that it's there, so it might be getting delivered to my local post office box sometime tomorrow. But yeah, it says it's arriving tomorrow by 9 p.m., but I'm assuming that it'll be there at maybe noon. Anyway, yeah, that's like getting new headlights was one of the issues. I'm not going to drive out there for like 8 hours. It's probably going to be some night driving also, and the headlights are shoddy at best. When they do come on, only one headlight will come on. And sometimes like none of the headlamps will come on at all, like the running lights, the headlights, the fog lights. So I don't know what the issue might be. I'm hoping it's just as simple as just like a bad relay switch. So I've gotten a set of those. I've got new headlight bulbs, and I got like a new headlight ballast because I don't know what the issue might be. But hopefully once I slap these things in there, the headlights will work, and they'll work long enough for me to do this fucking round trip thing once the tires are on there. So everything's almost set, and once we're there, I'll be doing like a donation stream to see if I can shore up some gas money for me to get down there. And also like the whole like HughesNet charging me $300 issue and me trying to get that refund is still like an ongoing thing, but thankfully I've got their shit packed up and ready to go. I'm going to go ship that off tomorrow, call HughesNet again, give them the tracking number, like, hey, your shit's on the way. And they've assured me that once they have that tracking number, they'll reimburse my account come the next pay period. And midterms are next week, and if I can gauge this semester, if it's the same as last semester, I should be getting like a small tuition bump around midterm. So I'm hoping that the HughesNet money comes in and the tuition bump comes in at the same time, so I can possibly use that for gas money. But just in case, like, I'm going to go ahead and do like a dono stream to see if I can get a little bit of money together. Oh yeah, Melody sent me a video for Escalade headlights. I think I might have seen this one, but I'll check it out. I'll check it out again, most definitely, and it should help in troubleshooting like what the issue might be. Anyway, with all that said and out of the way, let's get to some Drarwringz, shall we? And let's put on some spooky stories, because I enjoy listening to spooky stories. Oh shit. I saw some recommended movies on like YouTube, and I thought they were like free to watch, but no, they're buy or rent. Damn, because they have Color from Space and they have Nobody. Ooh, both are some good movies. Anyway, let's listen to this.
What I experienced in the New Mexican wilderness. This was ported over from an old account of mine with the mod's permission. Before I begin, I just want to say that it may well have just been some kind of strange rabid coyote that we encountered out in the Gila River National Forest, but maybe it was something else. I am not sure what I believe. I discovered No Sleep a few weeks ago after browsing on a few other subreddits. I didn't like Reddit's layout and I used to prefer browsing on Imgur. Now I understand Reddit is for text stories and Imgur is for pictures. I started reading creepypastas when one came up in Imgur's user sub and couldn't get enough of the really good ones on creepypasta.org, creepypasta.com, and the stories here on No Sleep. Then I found one titled Skinwalker deep in my feed one day and a wave of chills rolled over me. I put off reading it for a long time, but when I finally read it I was both disappointed and relieved. It was pretty good, very good in fact, but the creature described there was just the classic internet horror figure the Rake, and not a skinwalker. I decided to record my own experience in as much detail as I could to make sure they are totally differentiated. The Rake, Slenderman, Flesh Gates, Candlejack, are all one thing. Skinwalkers are totally separate. As for real? I can't confirm because
Right? Finally, someone's getting it. Good. Because with like all these other freaking like creepypasta creatures and cryptids, they're just like mislabeling them as skinwalkers. And one thing like people don't understand is that skinwalkers aren't cryptids. If they're anything, they're more like either evil medicine men or witches. That's just like something like a whole bunch of people get wrong when they try to tell their spooky skinwalker story. Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. Anyway,
In order to do that I would either need video evidence or a dead one, and I have neither. I can tell you what I saw, however, what I experienced, and you can draw your own conclusions.
I'm wondering if I should post the link around. I feel like I've been posting links all day, but no one's been coming. Like, it's just you and me, Melody. Like, hardly anyone else has like come by. There was that one guy who popped in for a little bit. Bobby Lee came by. Oh wait, there's another package I gotta check on. I ordered pants online, like cargo pants. It took more than a month for it to get here. Okay, let me post some links around. Trying to get some exposure here. Melly says, well, I do enjoy our alone time together. Aw, Lizzie too, honey love.
4 years ago I was on a camping trip in the Gila National Forest in New Mexico. I am from a small town on the Arizona-New Mexico border called Duncan. Don't worry, you've never heard of it, but now I live in St. Louis, Missouri. When I say small, I don't mean doesn't have a Walmart small, I mean if I stood on my roof I could see where town ends small. But it was a good upbringing, if extremely boring. I had a week off of work and had been planning this trip for months. I was taking a few really good friends back to where I would hike in high school. My best friend Dave, his brother Daniel, and his brother's girlfriend Ida, who had long grown tired of the Idaho jokes made her whole life, partially by me and Dave, and now went by her shortened middle name Beth. Obviously I wouldn't include that last bit if it wasn't important, so keep that in your back pocket for now. We were all experienced campers and outdoorsmen. Daniel had actually met Beth partial hiking the Appalachian Trail, and Dave and I had spent time doing walkabouts in the Ozarks and Smokies, with one trip up to the Boundary Waters where I lost a pack in a capsized canoe and had to survive off the land for a few days before we got to someone with a satellite phone. This is important because you need to understand that we all knew our way around the wild, we didn't scare easily, and knew that 9 times out of 10 the animals we're afraid of are more afraid of us. Just as an aside, typically these stories are annoyingly vague when it comes to location and details, especially the ones people say are legitimate, so I will copy and paste the plan for the trip below.
This guy gets it. Like, I hate stories that like, oh, for everybody's safety, I'm not going to reveal the location of the place where these events transpired because I don't want anyone to get hurt. It's like, fuck you stupid fucking shit. That's like a big red flag that says like, hey, this story's bullshit. I just don't want anybody to get hurt, so I'm not going to reveal the locations or the locales in this story. I'm so considerate. Get bent, yo. We want location, zip code. Oh, we want location, zip code, and even the hour, minutes, and seconds of the event. We need deets. Yes, give us all the deets.
Any local will tell you that these are real places that people do go while backpacking. The plan was to start from Silver City, go 42 miles north on NM15 and turn left toward Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument. Continue 1 mile to the West Fork Trailhead. Walk a half mile back to the TJ Corral Trailhead, climb Little Bear Canyon, then hike down into the Middle Fork Gila River Canyon.
Holy shit, this guy's really getting in there. Here's, like, besides giving us like a legit like image of a road map, he's like, this is where you go about and get into this place.
Follow the river upstream, and set up camp around the 6-mile marker. After the day hikers are gone, backtrack to the hot springs before dinner. The next day, continue up the Middle Fork to set up camp at the Meadows. I called it Matthews Flats in high school. The next day take the Pryor Creek and Lily Park trails, crossing plateau grasslands to the rim of Hell's Hole Canyon. Take Hell's Hole Trail 268 to West Fork Trail 151, following it 12 miles to the end. There's a great campsite under a rocky alcove near the Hell's Hole Trail junction if we make it there in good enough time.
Fuck, this guy's thorough. Man.
If this story doesn't dissuade you, I'd recommend this backpacking trip, but I won't be going back there. On our first night we made camp exactly where we were supposed to, around 6 miles from the trailhead down the middle fork of the river. We found a nice quiet spot by the river bank about 40 feet from the water. It was dark, and the fire was small but warm, and the food that you make while camping always tastes better than when it is cooked at home. We were quiet, and the stars overhead seemed close enough that if you reached your hand out you could brush them away like sand from a blanket. The only light came from a half-moon hung low in the sky through the scrubby trees and our fire. The euphoric peace was crushed by the absolutely unmistakable sound of coyotes that echoed throughout the trees behind us. Those who have never heard them may think they're basically dogs. They'd sound like barking, but that's not the case. Coyotes cry, they shriek and yap. Some people think they sound like children crying out in pain. Beth heard them first and turned her flashlight to the north. We could tell they were a long way off, but when you hear something like that you instinctively look for a source. Daniel said we should pack up tight tonight, and that we didn't need any scavengers like that getting into our food or trash. We agreed, even though the likelihood of anything getting close to us was very slim. Bears had been sighted recently, so it was better to be safe. We repacked anything that could attract unwanted attention and in the process let the fire die down to embers, all the while hearing the crying to the north. It was then we all saw it. A single coyote, sitting in the dark watching us about 30 to 40 yards out of our camp next to a small mesquite tree. We could see its shining, iridescent eyes in the dark thanks to the little fire, and they shined bright like emerald mirrors when flashlights were shined in its direction. We heard his pack to the west again, but he didn't react beyond turning an ear to that direction. Dave asked if he should shoot it since coyotes are vermin around here, but we all said no. It hadn't done anything and may have just been curious. Dave had a .500 Smith & Wesson revolver as black bear deterrent that he kept in a leg drop holster on his left leg. It was getting late and we had a big hike the next day, so after everything was put away, we got into our tents and went to bed. I didn't sleep too well that night, and every time I looked through the mesh window of my tent I saw those two unflinching iridescent orbs in the darkness. The coyote was gone when we woke up. We broke camp and buried the fire. Not disturbing the environment was important to us, and we made sure to leave nothing but footprints. Beth and Daniel were the first to notice something wrong though. The mesquite tree that the coyote was close to was much bigger in the daylight. And there were absolutely no tracks to be found. Dave quickly explained that it was too dry for good prints and the coyote was just probably closer than we thought in the darkness. I wasn't convinced. We were camped on a riverbank, so in theory it should have been at least a little wet, but there was no need to incite a panic over nothing. Plus it was gone by this point, so I thought, who cares? We had 2 more days to the plateau with a night at the top, and when we got about a half hour into the hike, Daniel stopped. He was sure he had his knife the night before, but it was now missing from its sheath on his pack. He decided that we should go on ahead and he would run back down to the campsite. It should only put him about an hour behind us, less if we walked slow, and he had plenty of experience on his own. Besides, we got smart and Daniel rented a satellite phone for $50 for the week, so if he got in trouble he could call the park rangers. He said he would be back long before dark when we had camp set up, and he should have been. The trail at that point wasn't that tough, he wasn't. We set up the camp at the meadows, got a fire going. The sun had set and the last light was leaving the sky. The reds and pinks of the sunset gave way to the purples and blues of night. We were discussing whether or not to send someone out to look for him when we heard fast, heavy footsteps. He was running, winded and trying to say something. He didn't have his pack. There, I thought, and looked at Dave, who already had his gun out ready to put down whatever came up the trail after his brother. Daniel was gasping for air. He collapsed at Beth's feet, holding himself up with his arms. Beth screamed, asking if he was all right, what was wrong, if he was hurt. Meanwhile, I reached in my pack and retrieved my camp axe. It wasn't much, but it was better than the small 3-inch knife I kept in my hip pocket. Nothing came after Daniel. He was still panting when he turned over to sit in the ground. "It's not a coyote," was all he could say for the next 15 minutes between drinks of water from my camelback and gasps of air. He repeated it over and over. I looked at Dave, who had never seen his brother like this. Daniel was an Eagle Scout and fairly...
Damn, man. Oh shit is right? Man.
A large guy at about 6'2", 200 pounds, and wasn't the type to get spooked by an animal, even a big one. Beth never let go of him as we made food that night. One of the tents, some of the food, his sleeping bag and one of the 2 cooking pans had been in his bag. A day hiker actually found it and it was sent back to him some weeks later. It was torn a bit but nothing was missing. Always put your info on your stuff, kids. There are still good people left. When he got a hold of himself and was able to breathe normally, he told us what happened, punctuated by deep breaths and a vacant look as he was trying to decide if what he just experienced actually happened to him. He said that he had almost reached the river when he realized how quiet it was. He heard no birds, no bugs, no wind. He barely heard the river, which at this point was little more than a trickle, when the night before it was...
Oh, fuck yeah. The new Dragon Ball Super movie? Ah. Well, I think if you wait long enough, like they'll put up like a better quality version. It's like the same with me. Like when I was watching Nope, when I first put it on, it was just like a fucking video recording in the cinema. I was like, oh man, I don't want to fucking watch this like that. But recently, I guess they uploaded a better version. Shut up, dogs. That's enough. Hush. Okay.
shallow but at least 15 feet across. He looked up the trail.
Bork, bork. Oh, you were saying, oh shit, but not to the story. You were like pulling up this Dragon Ball Super movie. Sweet. What's up, Dasco? Dasco Draws is in the chat. All right, but yeah, fucking Dragon Ball aside, like this story is actually pretty good.
To see the coyote from the night before, but
anyway,
standing on two legs like a man 40 feet.
Hold on, I gotta like pull it back a little bit.
People left. When he got a hold of himself and was able to breathe normally, he told us what happened, punctuated by deep breaths and a vacant look as he was trying to decide if what he just experienced actually happened to him. He said that he had almost reached the river when he realized how quiet it was. He heard no birds, no bugs, no wind. He barely heard the river, which at this point was little more than a trickle, when the night before it was shallow but at least 15 feet across. He looked up the trail to see the coyote from the night before, but standing on two legs like a man 40 feet from him. He said it stood 6 feet tall and didn't dance around at all, trying to stay up like a dog does who is trained to balance on two legs. He made it a point to mention that its mouth was closed as it just stared at him. A deep, primal fear seized him and triggered his freeze instinct. He said he locked eyes with it for a minute that seemed like hours, when he finally had the sense to try backing away. No sooner had that thought entered his head did the coyote let out the most unnatural coyote cry he had ever heard. He said it wasn't deafening in the sense that your ears are left ringing, but it was deafening in the sense that that noise is all you can hear even after it had stopped. Daniel wasn't stupid enough to think that he could outrun a coyote, especially one of this size who was clearly not afraid of him, so he had to think quick. He slowly took a step back, fully expecting the animal to charge, but it didn't. Too afraid to look away, he crouched down and felt for a rock, a big stick, something to defend himself with, but there was nothing but small pebbles. It began to move its mouth and Daniel stood up. The animal's eyes rolled back in its head and it slowly opened its mouth too wide to be natural. He showed me a picture of an animal called a thylacine and told me its mouth looked like that when we got back after all this. It's an extinct dog-like thing from Tasmania that could open its mouth to something like 130 degrees. Look it up if you have the time. This obviously put him over the edge.
What was this thing called? Thylacine. Oh. Something like that. Yeah, that'd be fucking creepy. Dasco Draws just discorded something to me. Me staring at the coyote who just stood on its hind legs and said my full name, my birth date, and January 7th, 2047, then went back to normal. crazy. Right, is that supposed to be the day he dies? January 7th, 2047? 1747. Anyway, this is a good story. Yeah, Tasmanian taiga, I think. That's what it looks like.
His flight response kicked in and he took off back towards us. An hour away. Running full tilt back down the hiking trail, he heard the cry one more time a few seconds later, as deafening as ever. He heard the shifting of gravel behind him and the sounds of footsteps. The coyote was running after him. Whether it was on 2 legs or 4, Daniel didn't know, but he didn't risk slowing down to look back and see. He was horse-collared by his pack a few feet later. From his knees he slipped it off and ran as fast as he could. He knew the coyote should have been on him within 20 yards, but there were no footsteps behind him. He ran as long as he could before he slowed to a walk. Winded, he turned around to see nothing. He heard a snap in the forest to his right and he saw it as it reared up on 2 legs again. He couldn't run far, but it was the only chance he had. He stopped to walk whenever he was too tired to run anymore, but every little twig snapping or rustling in the forest became the coyote in his mind, driving him forward. Eventually he could see our firelight through the trees and broke out into a sprint. He said he nearly passed out more than once and that pure fear kept him running. Obviously at this point our trip was over. We had half the food, and half the tents, not to mention whatever was following us. We didn't have much choice regarding what to do that night though. It was dark and we had to try to hike back out the next day. Daniel wouldn't sleep unless someone kept watch, so we slept in shifts. The tent we had left was a 3-person tent so that Dave and I could keep our packs inside with us as well as other supplies while we slept. So while it wasn't ideal, it wasn't that big of a deal to cram 3 of us in while the other one kept watch. We stayed up between the tent and the fire for an hour and would then sleep 3 hours while the others took their turn. Dave left us his revolver with instructions to shoot to wound, not kill, with the first shot, but not to hold back if any follow-up shots were necessary, just in case we were shooting at something that wasn't our coyote. God forbid we should shoot a person hiking the woods at night for some reason. He took the first watch. Beth took the second and I took the third. Beth woke me up at about 1:30 a.m. She was visibly scared. Before I could say anything she put a finger to her lips and then covered her mouth with one hand. She was silently crying and looking at Daniel. I got up out of the tent and looked around. The forest was still except for the wind and the trees. The wind blew the tall grass and it bent as if an invisible hand brushed the tops of the blades. Visibility was obviously limited, but we could see the tree line surrounding most of the meadow. Beth and I silently looked at each other and the surrounding area for 5 minutes before speaking. I wondered why on earth she woke me up instead of Daniel when she finally spoke. In a low whisper, she told me I heard my name with tears still slowly rolling down her cheeks. Trying to remain rational, I told her it was okay, we were all shaken up, and that the wind-bending branches could conceivably make a bay sound and blowing through leaves could make a th sound, forming Beth. She was shaking her head. I didn't hear Beth. The hairs on my neck and arms stood up. She swore she'd heard Daniel's voice coming from the trees calling her real name. She looked in the tent to see if he was still there, and when he was, she was too afraid to wake him. I stayed awake with her for the remaining half her shift trying to hear what she heard, but the only noise came from the occasional bug and the sound of the wind. After a long while she settled down enough to be able to at least try to go back to sleep in the tent. We were so focused on listening that when it was my turn to take watch on my own, the fire had died down to almost nothing. This gave me something to occupy my time after Beth went back in the tent though, so that was okay. Unfortunately, rebuilding the fire took less than 15 minutes and was left with nothing to do but be alone with my thoughts for the remaining 45. This was the first time I really had to think about what was happening and how ridiculous it sounded. I believed them though, Beth and Daniel. Growing up on the border of New Mexico gave me countless opportunities to talk with native Navajo people. I knew that what was out there perfectly fit the description of a skinwalker, an evil Navajo medicine man who had inherited the ability to shapeshift into different animals if he wore.
Yes, there you go. The skinwalker isn't a cryptid. Like, a lot of these stories just get it wrong. But this guy knows what he's talking about. Though he doesn't sound like he's from the tribe, it sounds like he's very familiar with the stories. The legit stories. Not all these, like, fucking creepypasta skinwalker fanfics. Freaking nice. I don't know. The coyote knew enough. Damn, Daniel. Melody says, for once, it wasn't Carl.
Their skin. I
Carl.
had seen some weird stuff in the desert as a kid, but nothing like what Daniel said he saw. We weren't that far from the what we called the reservation, so it made sense.
Yes.
It didn't actually exist, right? Plus, I was told I didn't have to worry about them. A native kid I went to high school with told me that as ridiculous as it sounds, they can't hurt white people. But now I obviously wasn't sure. I thought it was just superstition, so I never asked how to actually fight these things. I began to fear an encounter. What if it actually was real?
I've never heard that. They can't hurt white people? I don't know. That's something I've never heard. Maybe it's just they usually don't hurt white people because there's not that many white people on the res.
If so, why did it want us? What would I do if it attacked? Would bullets hurt it? If not, what then? Would I die out here in the wild, victim of some kind of ancient ritual? My fear turned to dread. How would it kill me? My death was inevitable in my mind. We could call the rangers or police or something, but it would take them hours to reach us, minimum. By then it would be way too late. Looking back now, I'd think I was being irrational, but I now know that a sudden, deep-rooted fear is a sign of a supposed skinwalker nearby. My shift was almost done. I had almost forgotten about the gun beside me on the log I was sitting on. I almost didn't hear it. A twig snapped, off in the brush. Through the waves of heat and sparks escaping the fire, two iridescent orbs shone amidst the darkness of the meadow before me. My heart was in my throat. I shot up off the log and raised the gun. The eyes disappeared into the dark. Did I imagine it? Was I so afraid of this thing that I had envisioned its eyes locking with mine through the flames? The cry almost 90 degrees to my right shattered my thoughts. It couldn't have moved that far, that fast, could it? Was there more than one?
Yeah.
It sounded like a coyote, just one, high.
They fucking move fast. A skinwalker, man who isn't comfortable in his own skin, so he tries to wear others. Well, there goes my skinwalker immunity. When you put it like that, who does my brains go to the Freddy Got Fingered scene where Tom Green tries to wear that dead deer skin? When confronted with the scary, get naked and make it awkward for the monster. Yeah, just get naked and start beating it off.
Pitched shriek, but that wasn't the only sound there. Over a year later I would be at an outdoor concert. I was one of the first people in the gates and the sound tech had not muted one of the mics on stage. When a gust of wind blew through the empty amphitheater and reached the mic, I froze. The low quiet rumble of the wind emanating from the subs that shook my core froze me in my tracks. That's as close as I can come to describing the noise beneath the singing shriek of what I heard. I turned. There off to my right, standing upright, was the thing. Its forelegs weren't raised in a beg position like a dog does when they stand on their back legs. They hung awkwardly downward in front. Its mouth was closed as it stared me down from the tree line some 90 feet away. I heard Daniel gasp in the tent next to me. He knew it was back. Beth stifled a scream through her hands. Through more sheer terror than I had ever experienced, I unloaded 3 shots in its direction, forgetting all about the aforementioned plan to shoot to wound. The gun kicked way harder than I anticipated and at least one of my shots flew far into the treetops above the creature. I think I hit it with 1 shot though because it took a step back on 2 legs. I saw its mouth open then. I saw every tooth on its bottom jaw and they were all pointed at me. The animal shook its head once, and then with speed unlike anything I had ever seen, it ran straight across the meadow right for me. Still on 2 legs. The others came pouring out of the tent now as all of this had taken place over the course of less than 20 seconds. I fired again before it took too many steps and for sure hit it this time in the chest. After this hit, it dropped down on all 4s and jerked 90 degrees and took off in that direction. It ran toward the tree line behind the tent and picked up speed as it disappeared into the tall grass. I fired 1 more shot where I thought it would be before Dave yelled at me to stop. The revolver was a 5-shooter and he didn't have much ammunition. He thought he would only use the revolver against bears and figured if you can't put the bear down in 5 shots, it's over for you anyway. We didn't sleep the rest of the night. Its image haunts me to this day. It pops up in my head from time to time and I can't help but dwell on the living image in my head. Eyes rolled back, mouth open too wide like a thylacine as it gave a cry from another world. I gave the revolver back to Dave and he reloaded with what little ammo he had left, just a small pocket-sized 20-round box with only 15 left before he reloaded. None of us slept again that night. We packed up camp and waited by the fire until first light. The plan was to begin hiking as soon as we could see and call the park rangers to get out and meet us on the trail as soon as they could. We knew it would be more than days hike, but if the rangers could meet us on quads or ideally a truck, we could get to the imagined safety of the trailhead quickly. We called and told them we had been attacked by something in the night. It turned out that the guy who answered, Roderick, was Navajo, and got real quiet as we described what we saw. In a very serious tone, he said they'd bring out 2 side-by-sides, and that they'd get out in the next few minutes. He also told us that if we saw it again, not to look it in the eyes. He said he knew what it was and that we were lucky a few bullets deterred it for now. Hiking back down the trail, we were all extremely on edge. Every movement in the corner of our eyes was the thing. All of us had weapons out, silently walking, eyes constantly scanning. Dave, who was in front with the gun, stopped momentarily, causing all of us to stop. Not 10 minutes from our camp was the body of an elk. It wasn't torn in half, its entrails didn't spill out all over the trail in a bloody mess. The skin was gone, and the head, and something had eaten much of the top rear leg, but it was largely untouched by the scavenger animals of the forest. We would have heard a hunter the day before, and no trophy hunter would leave the carcass in the middle of a trail. I don't even know if it was elk season. I think that thing wanted us to find it. Wanted us to know what it was capable of, what it planned to do to us. We didn't see a single animal the rest of the hike, living or dead. When we heard the motors of the side-by-sides heading up the trail, we all breathed for what seemed like the first time since we broke camp. Roderick was driving the first one. He asked if we were all okay and if we had seen it again. We said no, but we told him about the elk, which he completely brushed off and told us to get in the vehicles. He didn't really want to talk about what he thought it was, but I knew. He had us fill out a report upon getting to the ranger station, but told us to hang around there for a few minutes. He walked out of the station with us and told us that he didn't know what exactly we saw because he wasn't there, but to him it sounded like something that his people don't talk about because they get power from the verbalization of their name, that they feed on fear. He also told us that it would make him feel better if we received a blessing from a good medicine man on the res. Beth wanted to go, but the rest of us just wanted out of New Mexico. Roderick drove us to a car and we spent the next 3 days with my family back home. After that we drove to Phoenix and flew back to St. Louis. I still wake at night when I hear coyotes crying. They live in the woods behind my house. I always go back to sleep when I realize that they are just coyotes and nothing more, when I don't hear the chest rumbling whisper beneath their cries. I still hike and backpack, but it took a while to get back out. Out of the hundreds of times I have been out, this was the only time I had ever been attacked by anything. I had gotten into Native American paranormal sightings since I left New Mexico, because if skinwalkers are real, and I'm not necessarily saying they are, we may have simply been attacked by some kind of rabid coyote that learned to stand, and at this point I almost believe it. If they are real, why not Wendigos, why not the Whistlers, why not Sasquatch, the big water snake, or the pious bird? Unfortunately, there's not really a satisfactory ending to my story, because it's not a story. It is reality. There is no edgy cliffhanger or goosebumps-inducing final line. That's it. That's my story, and if you have one, I'd love to hear yours.
Oh, that was good. That was fucking good. I liked it. Thumbs up. Excuse me for a second. I shall BRB. I gotta go hit the head. Oh, I need my house keys. And I guess my phone in case I miss a call. Don't want to miss any calls. Alright, BRB. One of my packages came today. I ordered these in the middle of summer because I wanted more, like another pair of cargo pants. Took like freaking maybe a whole month for it to get here. I was like, shit. Like the friggin' shipping company was like Zinwei or something like that. It was like, what is that? A shipping, like a Chinese shipping company? And I'm thinking like, why the hell is it taking so long for it to get here? Do they have to manufacture it in China first? Is that why it took so long? Like, did my package start out its trip as like a sheet of fabric? And each facility, it was marking off each facility as it got here. Like they had to cut all the fabric in one facility, send it to the next, ship it to the next one. And they put on like the zipper, shipped it to the next one. They put on the buttons and like maybe the belt loops and whatever. Finally got here. But here we are in like the ass into summer, but that's cool. At least I finally got them. Anyway. Squish pants. Calicos are always female. Oh, are you talking about like in the furry genre, calicos are always female? But you'd be wrong. This is a fluff boy. Fucking dogs. Okay. They're going butt wild out there. I gotta see what they're barking at. Johnston, I believe the term is buck wild, not butt wild. Shut up. I'll say what I said. I know what I said. Not sure what the fuck they were backing at. Oh, that's what you meant. In general, calicos are mostly female. Where did I freaking put my drawing glove? Oh, right there. A skinwalker is just a furry that went too far. It's just a furry that's been pushed to the edge. Furry that's gone over the edge and shape shifting into. Okay. Oh, gotta find another story. Well, it's better than other kin crap that used to go around. Dickheads believing they were vampires, etc. Oh my god. Oh, no. Yeah. It's like I saw like a freaking like serial killer documentary where it was like this guy like legit thought like believed he was a vampire and that's why he was killing people to drink their blood. Like, oh jeez, man. Like fucking how much of a loser are you? Uh mm. And they like show his like courtroom like photos and he's just like this wiry pasty dude with fucking like long greasy hair and is just covered in acne and everything. Like, oh god, what a fucking loser, man. Oh, I'm a creature of the night, I'm gonna kill people so I can drink their blood. Ugh. Fucking idiot. Saw one episode of Twilight and thought, yep, that's my new lifestyle. Of all things, like he was probably, yeah, he was probably inspired by Twilight. Oh god. What are they're doing short videos too? Let me see. I want to see.
Be me, hungry before work, see donut shop and think fuck it. That sounds pretty good. Go inside and get a chocolate donut and a chocolate muffin. Cashier says, wow, lots of chocolate today, huh? Ha ha, yeah, I'm the chocolate man from Chocolate Land. Never return there. Why am I like this?
Oh, that's it. Centaur Grave Demon? Oh god. Fucking yeah, they have centaurs over in like fucking what was it? Montana. Freaking native dude told me the story. It was like fucking legit centaur demon or something. Him and his pal were like just driving, doing late night driving and boozing out on the res. And I think they were parked somewhere, just like fucking kicking back and having some beers. Then they get spooked or something. I can't remember. They freaking jump in their vehicle and start driving away, and something's chasing them. And as they're just driving down the dirt roads, trying to get away from this thing, the buddy that I'm talking about, shit, I can't fucking remember his name, but like he turns around and he looks to see what was following them, and it's like legit like this freaking centaur thing with this like freaking wicked smiling face is just like chasing them. And he says like, yeah, it had like the full on like body of a horse and like the upper torso, like where the horse's head should be, it's like the upper torso of a man, and it's just chasing them, and like this thing is like jumping from side to side. on the on each side of the dirt road as it's like chasing him. Like it'll chase him for a little bit, and then it'll like clear the dirt road, like jump it on next side and keep chasing them on that side, and then it'll just kind of go back and forth like that, just going back and forth. And these guys, they don't know what to do, so like buddy, like he tells his friend to like go drive to this one guy's place, and so the guy guns it and like takes the dirt and gravel roads and like drives up to the guy he's like talking about. And as they start driving up to the guy's this guy's trailer, like the guy can hear him coming from down the road, and the guy in the trailer, he comes out and like he's like looking to like see who's coming, and these guys like they just fucking skid and drive up this guy's gravel driveway, and they jump out of the car. And before he can ask like what's going on, like he looks at what's chasing them, and all he could say is like, "Fuck, you brought that thing over here?" And he jumps like back into his trailer and comes out with a freaking like a shotgun and starts blasting at this thing that was chasing them. And after a few blasts, the freaking centaur demon like just like fucking runs off. And like he more or less says to these guys like, "Fuck you guys for freaking fucking bringing that thing back here." And like my buddy's like saying like what, you've seen that thing before? He's like, "Yeah, that fucker's been like coming around my place like for the last several weeks. Like last week it fucking killed my dogs, man." And so I guess like whatever this thing is, like some sort of centaur demon or whatever, it like roams the freaking dirt roads over in one of the reservations under Montana. Like this guy had like a whole bunch of fucking crazy stories, man. Wish I could like shit, I wish I remembered his name so I could like freaking try to get in contact with him. He was a cool dude though. I think he was either Blackfoot or he was Crow. Or was he Cree? Shit, it's been so long I can't remember. Anyway, let me just pull up this fucking centaur creepy story. Desco Joe says, "A chocolate man is just a chocolate friend." Yes. But would you suck that chocolate friend's dick? Would white chocolate come out? Man, I would say no, but it's chocolate. Gonna have to think on that one. Tasker says, no. Richie dances with the wind. That'll be the curry again. Oh, it's a bottom reference.
I'd like to start off by saying that I
Whoa!
don't...
Man, it's fucking blasting me in the ears. Gotta turn this down.
have a fucking clue why I'm posting this on /x/ or, really, at all. Maybe I'm afraid of dying, or something. The events described in this story happened a month and a half ago, in Shenandoah, West Virginia, although I typed this up about 2 weeks ago. I just haven't really had the guts to post this until what happened yesterday. The story starts in late September, when my family went to go visit our relatives, who invited us up to celebrate one of them, Desiree, getting like $2,000 in some scratch-off lottery thing. They live in this really fucking shitty part of Shenandoah that people from Charlestown, Shepherdstown and Ranson, basically the least rednecky parts of WV, like to call Squalor Holler. It's way up on the mountain, and exactly like how everyone pictures it when they hear about it.
Squalor Holler? Man, that sounds familiar. I'm wondering if I've run into anybody with tales of squalor holler. Was that Tim Curry? Oh, not the movie star Tim Curry. Like, I know someone named Tim Curry. He's a pretty cool dude. Can't remember if he's from around there. Like, he was like a fucking snake wrangler. Like, him and his brothers, when they were growing up, in order to like make some quick cash, because they more or less lived around squalor. They would wrangle rattlesnakes and put them in a box where animal control would come and pick them up, and then they would leave like money in the box for like as payment for like wrangling up these rattlesnakes that they themselves didn't want to fucking go out and go do. But yeah, like, oh shit, Tim Curry had like he had this crazy story about shit, what kind of snakes were they? They were like a kind of like a water moccasins. Fuck. It was like fucking crazy. Like okay, he like they would hang out at this river sometimes, him and his friends. And like, I guess this one season, like for some reason I can't remember what the causes were, but like it created like a lot of water moccasins. So there were like a bunch of water moccasins in the river. So Tim and his friends like knew not to like really do anything in the river, like don't go swimming. And I guess there may have been signs posted for that specific reason, but I guess these out of townies had come by and like saw the river and like wanted to go for a dip, and like fucking never mind all the signs or whatever. And since they were out of towners, like they didn't know the whole like situation with the water moccasins and how they frequent this river. But I guess in this one season they were like really abundant. And like Tim, like he says, like there like he was like at such a distance and everything happened so fast that there was like really nothing he could do. But like I guess the out of townies, like one of their kids like got stripped down to his shorts and like decided to jump in. Before Tim could do anything, like the kid was already airborne and like lands right into the river, and the river just fucking came alive, just like all these snakes like slithering back and forth, like the friggin', it's like the water just like started bubbling with all these snakes, and all those water moccasins just snapping at the boy. Because like I think, I don't know like what it was like something to do with like their breeding season or something. I can't remember what like the like those specific details, but yeah, fucking that kid was dead. It's like shit, man. And like then like Tim saying like he saw like the whole thing go down. There's like just really nothing you could do but just like freaking like watch in horror. Because fucking like, man, just if you're not local to an area, just don't fucking swim in like strange rivers that you're not that you're not accustomed to. Like fucking crazy, dude.
Nothing but ramshackle shacks, rusty-ass rebuilt trailers, everything fucking covered in decades-old Christmas decorations because they're all too busy being smelly rednecks to ever clean up. Real Deliverance shit, just no rivers or canoes. The relatives we were visiting are absolutely confirmed inbreeders, all cousins fucking each other. We don't refer to them as aunt, uncle, whatever, just relatives. Not terrible people or anything, just absolutely cartoonish, depressing hillbilly stereotypes. So anyway, we're up here in this godforsaken trailer. It sucks. There's like 8 of them, plus me, my dad, my mom, and my sister. About 2 hours in, my mom takes my cell phone so that I can focus on the family time together, which is bullshit. All we did the whole time was eat TV dinners and be forced to watch NASCAR and shit. After like 6 hours of this shit, about 10 minutes before we're supposed to leave, it starts raining. We know how treacherous the roads can get up on the mountain, so we decide to wait for the rain to die down. Flash forward 2 hours later, it's fucking dark as hell, 10 o'clock, and there's a flood warning for the area. I have my phone back by this time, no reception, though, of course, I'm playing Tetris and Texas Hold'em and stuff, when suddenly I hear my dad start losing his shit in the next room. I walk over, and it turns out that they let slip that they'd buried their kid, Thomas, outside, and apparently were afraid the rain would wash up his body or some other horseshit. The kid was like 6, he was attacked by a dog, and they never told the cops. Just fucking buried him like he was a family pet. My dad's flipping his shit, and rightfully so, because, you know, we live in the 21st century and all. So our relatives all say they'll sort it all out in the morning. My parents tell me and my sister to stay in the same room as them during the night, and we do. None of us really suspected that they'd killed Thomas or anything. Since they're really peaceful, they didn't even own any guns aside from this one old-timey double-barrel shotgun they had on a mantle. Nevertheless, we were creeped the fuck out, and intended to tell the cops in the morning once we got to town. So, it was like 3 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. Power had gone out for the 5th time or so, and I'm not able to charge my dead phone. Worst part is, I could see Thomas's little grave right outside the window. Little cross on it and everything, and I assumed the kid couldn't have been buried deep at all since they were so worried about him just washing up out of the grave. So I was just fixated on it, kept being drawn to looking out the window. And then I saw the fucking worst thing in my life, something was creeping through the trees toward the house. I stared at it for a while, but couldn't get a good look at it since it was raining and the brush was so thick. For a few minutes I assumed it was 2 really pale horses, kind of ambling through the woods side by side. But then it walked into the moonlight, and I saw that it was all one thing, like a kind of human torso, but wider. It finally stepped into full view, and I saw it had something like 6 legs, kind of somewhere between a beetle's legs and a horse's legs. 2 arms, right where someone would normally have them, but they were about a half a foot longer than any normal man's arms. It had a bald head, but the face looked like some sort of fucking bizarre masquerade ball kind of mask. This fucking clenched up, furrowed forehead, and a nose that looked sort of like a crow's or a raven's beak. It didn't have eyes, either. Just like the depressions where eyes would go. It looked like it had a human mouth, underneath its proboscis. What still strikes me to this day is that it seemed to have a penis, too, like right on the abdomen where a normal person's dick would be. The thing moved sort of gracefully, and made these soft thumping noises when it moved. It must have been like 7, 8 feet tall, but sounded like it weighed maybe only 150 pounds at most. It starts walking towards Thomas's grave, and then I finally snap out of whatever trance I was in, and just scream.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, I just noticed, love, like the dupe you sent me in Discord. I'm so unobservant. Oh. What was your red Indian name then? Running Mouth? Sitting Down? Talking Bullocks? Dances with the Wind? That'll be the curry again. Okay. Where are we?
My mom is the first to wake up, and I tell her to look out the window. She rushes over, and doesn't really seem to understand what she's looking at. After a minute, though, the thing bends down and starts pawing at the grave with its hands. My dad and Jasper rush in, and Jasper just fucking loses his shit. Screams like a little girl, runs back out of the room, yelling for his father, yelling it's outside, it came and it's outside. I look back and see the thing is digging furiously at the ground, kicking up huge mounds of dirt. I hear these sounds of feet running around the house. I think they were looking for the shotgun. The thing reaches into the hole and grabs up what I assume was Thomas's body by the leg in one hand. The thing kind of gallops back into the woods, snapping all these branches and shit, and then that's when we all hear it, a kid crying. The sound of a child sobbing and crying, from the direction that the thing took off in. We left as soon as the rain let up, at like 5 a.m. I don't even think we told anyone at the house. Drove straight back to Ranson, only stopping for gas. No one said a word to each other. My family refuses to speak about what happened. I tried to bring it up once, just to make sure it was real. My dad told me to shut the fuck up, so I did.
You can't have his body, no penis. How do you know that? Oh, that kid crying part in the story, like the freaking dark imagery in my head just like imagines like whatever this creature is probably like ripped the head off and like right below the freaking voice box and like started using the head as like maybe like a horn or a conch and started blowing in the larynx. That's fucking freaky to think about. Like why would the kid be crying? I thought he was dead. Like, oh, that's probably why. Rip the kid's head off and blowing into the throat like a friggin' horn or a bugle. That's creepy. Why would you imagine that, Black Horse? Oh, I don't know. Got a dark imagination.
Typed this up about 3 weeks after it happened, but just saved it to a notepad file and left it alone. Never mentioned it to any of my friends or anything, just tried to erase it from my mind by getting absolutely fucked up drunk whenever my thoughts lingered on it. It mostly worked, up until yesterday. See, I work at this gas station in Ranson, from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. I work the register, keep the place clean, and take out the trash. Yesterday, when I was bringing the trash bags over to the back of the building for the dude in the morning to take care of, I heard what I had assumed to be some junkie fucking around in the dumpster. I yelled at whoever it was a couple of times to get the hell out before I called the cops. But as I walked towards the source of the noise, I suddenly heard those same footsteps. That soft thump thump. Hooves or feet, or whatever the hell they were. I turned right around and went back into the store and hid behind the counter. I look over at the outside security monitor and see some kind of movement from just off screen, something huge casting a shadow and moving. Catch a glimpse of, I don't know, an elbow or something. A pale limb, darting in and out of view. It had to have been the same thing. I waited for it to leave, and after a while, it did. I woke up behind the counter at 6 a.m. this morning to my manager giving me this fucking look like I'm a drug addict or something. Went home, typed the rest of this up. And that's about it.
Fucking creepy, man. I gotta wake up early tomorrow morning, get ready to head out. Which means I gotta clean the Escalade out. There's a bit of debris and trash in there. But if me or mom are gonna go get these new tires, I better make sure it's ready to go. Ancient Georgian folklore. 2 hours and 46. That's almost like 3 hours. Oh, here's a compilation. Looks like I wasn't finished with. Let me check it out.
The feeling that we're being watched and can hear brushes moving, I'm telling you.
Well, I know it had her asleep.
Might as well tell my story. I was about 12 or 13, walking back from shopping center in England with my uncle.
Oh, what's wrong, love? Oh, are you upset, disappointed that I'll have to leave early in the morning to go get these new tires? Are you gonna miss your squish burrs? Your early morning squish burrs? Well, I don't think we'll be gone for too terribly long. It's an hour drive there. I don't know how long the wait's gonna be. We shouldn't be waiting like a long while. These be okays. Because we're going to try to leave around 7. Yeah, leave around 7, get there at 8. Right as they open up, we'll try to be the first ones there. Probably be the first to be serviced. Maybe take about an hour, give or take, and then just like come on right back. 8, 9, so 7, 8, 9, 10. Be back around maybe about 10 or 11. Maybe on the way back, grab us some Spaceys. It's been a while since I've had some Spaceys. Get a good Spaceys burger with some fries and a Coke.
Around 45 years old at the time, decide to take a shortcut and walk through the wood.
Oh shit.
It was a nice bright day.
Dasco Draws ate too much.
I get the feeling that we're being watched and can hear brushes moving. I'm telling him something about this video game while he listens. Something in the bush repeats what I'm saying but extremely garbled. I'm scared but don't show it. Start closing my eyes when we walk through bits that have bushes on both sides. It says it again, but much clearer. My uncle looks annoyed and says kids with nothing better to do. We hear it back perfectly. Like it echoed. It repeats 4 or 5 times. We both think it's kids and decide to fuck with them. Uncle. He was kinda the naughty uncle. He'd let me swear around him, which I wasn't supposed to do at my age. Says I'm a queer and I like blokes. The thing repeats it perfectly and says it a few times. We think it's hilarious and we're saying all sorts. We start to smell a rusty smell, a bit like pennies. Wasn't too odd because the lake nearby had runoff pollutants. Zero sound at all. Birds have stopped. Wind stopped and so have crickets. Something starts to chase us and we get split off from one another. I can hear Uncle shouting my name, so I start walking towards it. He's in a field clearing, looking around for me. Go towards him, glance back because I was always a paranoid boy. See Uncle behind me and non-stop. I'm really hungry. Look forward and see Uncle again looking for me. Look back, see a really stiff version of my uncle without much facial expression. Bolt straight off to the clearing and we both ran home. It fits the type of story that's usually posted here about skinwalkers. I have other uncles with experiences but they refuse to talk about it.
3. A mate I grew up with, Aboriginal bloke. We were camping and I went for a pee on a dark night. We were way inland behind some rock hills, tall dead cane grass was everywhere and couldn't see far. After I relieved myself I heard my mate calling me, but it was away from the camp. It was strange as I'd left him in camp. I waited. He called again, no mistaking his voice. I called back and started walking out toward him. This went on for a little while, changing directions sometimes, caling me on. Suddenly someone grabs me and I leap out of my skin and spin around. I have already realized I have walked deep into the cane grass and am disorientated. My poor sphincter has taken a bite out of my shorts. It is a very somber face, my mate's face, deadly serious. I'm thrown into confusion. I'm a little angry. What are you doing? You're out in front of me. How did you get behind me? He says, it isn't me. We stand still, it's completely silent. I'm starting to get mad but I can see the fear in his face. I wait. Sure enough, his voice calls again. Now, IMF *RKEN freaked. I'm all wide-eyed and staring at him. He whispers, bad spirit, we'll go back to camp straight away. If I knew where the the camp was I would have run straight up his back to get there. At the camp he tells of how for eons this has happened. People get called away by familiar voices. Sometimes they make it back to tell what happened and sometimes if they are young they perish. I know what I experienced so there is no denying it, but I always console myself with the explanation that it is some type of mimicking bird. If he hadn't heard me and come tracked me down, well.
Be me, working at a reception on a certain company. During the winter it's usually really quiet, just a few customers a day. One day hear a distant voice, can't see anything around me so just forget about it. After some time I hear the voice again, get confused. It's an ambient, ghostly voice, can't make anything out of it. But hear distant calls for help. Ask my coworkers. They hear it sometimes too but don't know what it is or where it comes from. I hear it only near
It's
my
good
reception
food.
desk
It's
but not in the
spice.
secondary lobby. For example, it's been weeks. The voice gets slightly quieter and quieter, but I can still hear it. Get seriously paranoid because I've been afraid
Gonna
of
do
ghosts since
another
I was a
ginger
kid.
ale.
Decide with coworkers that we need to call the police. Police arrives. They mop the fucking agency from the They hear the voice too. They say they'll
Whoa,
come back
shit.
tomorrow to check if they find anything. One more time, the next day, come to work, can't hear the voice anymore. Police arrive shortly after. I greet them and say that the voices are gone. They check out the nearby area once more just in case. Can't find anything. Just as they're about to leave, the officer finds
What was that?
something and is in a visible shock. There's something behind my receptionist table, a dead body. The police ask the staff to leave so they can examine the body. After some time the police ask me to come over. They explain what's going on. The dead man was under 180 centimeters tall and couldn't reach my field of vision from behind the reception table. We share a good laugh and blame the shorty. With an audible laughter we dump the manlet to the nearest trash can. Even today, we still talk about the story of the man who was below 180 centimeters. The laughter, the sheer laughter.
James awoke in a daze. "Hello?" he murmured. "Hello?" There was no reply. He was finally waking up, looking around. Where was he? What was this place? All sorts of questions filled his mind. The strong stench of something foul filled the air. A stench he couldn't quite put his finger on. He stood up and looked around, discovering he was in a small, windowless room. The only source of light and sound came from a single humming fluorescent light bulb on the roof. There was a small opening across the room, no bigger than a dog door. James went to look into it, but was caught halfway by a chain tied around his leg, chaining him to the wall. He was trapped like an animal waiting to be killed. Hours passed, and nothing happened. Not a sound. Not another living being, nothing. James was beginning to wonder if he'd be left in here, left to rot. Suddenly something startled him. A tin can slid across the floor from the small opening. He rushed to pick it up. It was labeled, Henry's Meat. Whoever was keeping him here, they wanted to keep him alive. He scoffed the can, realizing he hadn't eaten in hours. The meat was cold and tasted foul, but it kept him going. James began to lose track of time. Days passed, as he slowly began to feel himself lose grip on reality. Day after day of waiting for another disgusting can of Henry's Meat to arrive through the opening he could never look into. He tried doing exercises. He tried to distract himself from the thoughts of just what might happen to him, but it never worked. Suddenly there was a grunting noise, like a large, whirring factory machine. There was a brief pause, and then gas started to fill the room. James coughed, struggling to breathe. A speaker suddenly came on. "Hello, James. We're dreadfully sorry about all this, but we've gotten everything we needed from you right now. You are no longer needed. Please prepare for imminent termination." Was that it? James thought, all this and I'm just no longer needed? Rage engulfed him. He started furiously hitting at the wall till his knuckles bled, but he didn't care. He started throwing old cans of Henry's Meat at the wall, screaming. He started to feel lightheaded, and fell to the ground. His vision was beginning to fade to black. With his last glimpse of light he saw the wall across the room open, like a giant door. Two black human-shaped featureless creatures walked out towards him. One approached him on the floor, pointed an object at his head, and in a painless instant consciousness left James. Blake awoke in a daze. He stood up and looked around, discovering he was in a small, windowless room. The only source of light and sound came from a single humming fluorescent light bulb on the roof. There was a small opening across the room, no bigger than a dog door. Hours passed, and nothing happened. Not a sound. Not another living being, nothing. Suddenly something startled him. A tin can slid across the floor from the small opening. He rushed to pick it up. It was labeled, James's Meat.
Between age 13 to
Lame.
15, hanging out with a friend when we notice that his basement has absolutely no windows, blackest pitch black I've ever seen. When you turn off the lights and close the door, we decide to make a game out of it. Sit on the top step with the door shut and the lights off. First person to chicken out and either flip the light switch or open the door loses. We're lasting a while the first time. I'll notice something at the far end of the basement. A pair of red lights next to each other. Fancy they're moving slightly. Point them out to friend. He sees them too. That round ends in a draw as we both yank that door open and jet back upstairs. Rationalize the lights. Probably just some kind of machinery. There was a furnace down there and probably some other stuff that would have red lights. Round 2. Notice the lights straight away this time. Point them out to friend. They are very close to where the furnace is, but not quite in the exact spot. Eyes adjust slightly to the near perfect darkness. Fucking humanoid shape in the dark around the lights. It's like a cloaked person hunched over with glowing red eyes. Again. Looks like it's occasionally shifting from side to side as if uncomfortable sitting in one place for too long. Otherwise doing nothing whatsoever. Well, I lost this round. Back up into the light and the safety. We rationalize some more. This time it's some kind of machine and a pile of clothes or a stain on the wall.
Try for round 3. Again we see the red lights and the gently shifting humanoid shape. It's not making any aggressive moves, so we just stare it down for probably 15 minutes or so. Neither of us are backing down this time, so we agree to a draw, turn on the main lights, and finally go to investigate the eyes. We check the wall where we saw them, jack shit. There's a single shelf bolted to the wall and holding a single box of paraffin wax and nothing else, nothing mound-shaped, nothing red, and nothing illuminated. Way too chicken's tea to investigate with the lights off. I'd been reading /x/ for several years at this point, and I knew what comes from antagonizing shit you don't understand. We eventually arbitrarily decided that it was the ghost of his dead hamster, whose cage was stored elsewhere in that same basement.
Be me, about 10 years old, live in rural area, neighbors are cow fields. It's about 10 o'clock at night, I'm getting ready for bed. As I'm getting ready I notice there's no bug noises outside. Think that's weird as I live in Louisiana and there's always bugs. Always, decide to peek out the window, look out the window and there's a man starting right at me. Look into his eyes for what feels like hours, unable to scream or look away. This man wasn't a normal man. His face looked like he had been burned and that it didn't heal right, was just this lumpy stretched out mess. And he was smiling at me. Finally the spell was broken, I screamed. Dad ran outside looking for this man, found no trace. Only feet impressions on the grass.
I used to live on what I'd call a cursed farm. Move in a farm with mom and abusive mom's boyfriend. Place has an extensive history of dead people. Last owner died electrocuted when he tried to fix a light on an electric pole outside. Pretty stupid considering electric poles are not private propriety. But whatever, first few months mom seriously injure herself 3 times. All 3 occurrences needing serious medical intervention. Attic is sealed shut, instantly hear footsteps in the attic and other assorted banging noises. Get pushed by an invisible thing while doing farm work in the storage bam. We stay less than a year and sell the place. I wish I could also say that my mom's abusive BF from hat time was possessed or some shit. But he was just that much of an asshole. Things kept happening to me, my mom and his kids, but nothing ever happened to him. Maybe he was that fucking evil of a person that the curse thought he was a bro or something. But the real irony in this is that none of the paranormal shit that happened to us in there came close to the kind of violence we had to endure from him, and, as I said, it would'll be easy to pin it on the curse. Expect that we lived in many places before and after that farm, and this guy was about exactly as evil as he always was when he came into our life.
8 years old, riding my bike around in the woods on the edge of town. Gets dark, come back into town on a trail that goes right behind a pizza place. Come around the back of the pizza place and see a man lying on the ground on the other side of a chain-link fence. Perched atop the man is Death, scythe in one hand, tattered dark gray cloak, hood overhead, literally Grim Reaper. Death's hand is on the man's chest. Death turns and looks at me. All I see is the bottom of its chin, bone white under the hood. Instant reaction is pure terror. I scream, immediately switch from terror to anger, and start screaming some more. Get away from him over and over. Someone from the pizza place hears me, comes out the back door, sees what's going on and calls the police. Turns out the guy on the ground was some homeless guy who had passed out, and Death was just another homeless guy who saw a passed out person and was searching through his clothes trying to find money or drugs. The reason I saw bone was because the guy was pale as shit and his side was just a walking stick. Not everything can be spoopy, I guess.
Explain me this. Having a walk in
Lame.
the woods with my dog, find a stray dog identical to mine. She seems quite docile, so. Okay, maybe it has an owner. I'm a volunteer in an animal care center, so I have a microchip checker when I have a walk with my dog. Checker, it's a female, like mine. ID says it's my dog, check mine. Same result, okay? PNG. Do this twice with same results. Decide to pick her to my car, which is a cage big enough for 2 dogs, to leave her in the animal care center. Had to stop in a gas station because low fuel. Go to check the cage, only my dog is there and she's scared AF. Cage was perfectly closed, so. I don't understand shit. I don't openly freak out because I was in a public place.
You aren't as clever and funny as you think you are. Obviously they thought it was a great prank until they realized you were armed. Be me, usual weeknight, 1 a.m. in the morning, about to go to sleep. Hear tapping on window. Bro is closest to the window on the couch. He suddenly yells, "There's a crazy person in robes outside, what the fuck?" JPEG, instincts tell me to grab my 9. Yell at bro to open the side door and see who this fuckhead is. on the staircase, pointing my 9 at the side door. Just as the door opens, chamber around, oh shit. JPEG Ema about to drop some crazy fuck at my side door. Bro yells it's our neighbor Anon. It turned out to be my neighbor in a chicken costume that had a chicken head as the hoodie part. I was so shaken because I honestly thought I may have had to kill some crazy fuck. Why in the fuck my neighbor thought to come over in a chicken suit at 1 a.m. is beyond me. Also scared the neighbor because they heard the gun chamber around.
Not really spoopy but strange. This is a memory I have from when I was around 6 or 7, so not really young nor old. I used to spend time with my dad in the rural area he was from. He was a simple, hard-working country man, used to farm work, and a simple lifestyle. Also an alcoholic but in general a good man, be me, 6 or 7 years old as I mentioned, hanging out with my dad. He drove his pickup to a relatively isolated piece of land he owned. He would do random chores like cutting up wood, check hunting trails and so on, and would take me with him so I would learn and help him. This time we're just sitting in his truck doing nothing. It's getting dark so we must go back soon. He's just finishing his 40 and looking off the windshield as the night falls. Look over there, Anon. Look at the firebirds. What? See a bunch of raven-like birds flying around shooting small fire beams out of their beaks like in a synchronized dance. Continue to look at them in awe for a couple of minutes. Dad finishes his beer and drives home. As incredible as it sounds, I thought nothing of it and forgot about it. Months later I asked my dad about the firebirds. He doesn't know what I'm talking about. MFW, he was a troubled man in his youth as well. We'll post a story next.
When I was older, 11 to 12, I started calling my dad crazy old man as part of a game. We were used to jokes so it didn't seem that disrespectful to me. One day my mom talked to me and asked me to stop calling him that because apparently some old girlfriend of his tried to make him go insane. She didn't give me more details, but here's the story. 30 or so years ago, Dad was sort of a handsome man. Not quite Chad, but he was charming to women, had his fair share of women, or so I've been told. One of them is a crazy bitch though. Apparently she was or knew someone who was into black magic stuff. I'll assume Dad got what he wanted or just got tired of her, so he dumped her ass. Girl got butthurt and threatened him. You will go crazy for me. Months later Dad got really sick. I'm talking heat strokes, delusions, weakness, etc. His family thought he was going to die. One day he just stands up from his bed, goes to the kitchen and confronts his family members aggressively. Grandpa and uncles try to calm him down. He had one older brother and 3 younger ones, but somehow overpowers them all. They are all freaked out. He gets on my grandma's face, tells her she should fear him. She's a very religious woman. Tells him she can't fear her offspring. Dad throws a heavy-ass sewing machine across the room and storms out of the house. Comes back some days later wearing the same clothes. Doesn't happen again.
Me and brother and are in room on the floor, late at night, and our parents are asleep. We aren't supposed to be awake, so the lights are off. We're just quietly talking to each other and messing around with some Legos or something. We're more or less whispering back and forth non-stop like kids do. Something suddenly crashes downstairs. Probably the cat knocking something over. We both pause. But the whispering doesn't. We look at each other. We are definitely not doing it. Something behind my brother moves. I go to say something and I get a brief view of it as a car passes. What I can only describe as a mummy is lying under my brother's bed, looking at me. It's not a bandage type mummy. This thing looks like a body that's been left baking in the sun for decades. It has very big teeth. It is reaching for my brother. The whispering is the sound of its skin on the floor. I scream and jump up. Turn on the light. It's there for a split second. Then it's gone. Brother thinks I am crazy. He didn't see it. Never tell him about it. Shove a bunch of boxes and sleeping bags under his bed. Make up some shit about seeing a mouse under there. He doesn't question it. Never saw it again.
True story. Be a freshman in college, super high, walking through your dorm with your friend at 4 a.m. Group of what we wrongfully assume to be students approaches us. Starts conversation. Conversation feels unnatural. They awkwardly shift the discussion towards God. Ask me if I believe in God. My friend says kind of. I say no. They ask me if I've ever heard of the Mother, WTF.png. Tell me they've created a student-run God club and I should join. They tell us it meets at a church in town. We know they're lying because all student groups meet on campus, not off campus. They keep trying to convince us to come. They tell us we should come right then. Keep in mind it's like 4. We get freaked out, lie about having to go meet some people, and we take off. Friend and I duck into my room and rant about how fucking weird that was. We went to a tiny school, less than 2K kids at the time. I've seen basically every at the school at least once. I have never seen those kids before and have not seen them since.
Part 1/3. Been working on an ambulance for a few years. Last 5 months has been in a beach town on the west coast. Most calls are bullshit, rich old assholes from the cliffs always crashing cars and having heart attacks, harbor scum and homeless always owing on heroin and whatever else. A lot of death but all explainable, all expected. We're trained to understand mechanism of injury, only as a way to anticipate injuries not readily visible. Over the last few months I went on a few calls I couldn't understand and saw things I couldn't explain. The first call, dispatched to an unresponsive male at 0622, barely awake from busy full moon night cleaning up degenerates, partner and I drag ass getting out of the chute, bodies found in the morning have usually been there for hours equals can't be saved, pull up and see the morning joggers that called it in on the beach, fuck. Time to work, start CPR for appearances because crowd watching, body is crumpled face down in the sand with clothes ragged and shoes missing, first thing I notice is the skin. Cold, ice cold. Wet, not soaking but wet. Really pale, almost white. First compression comes up soft, CPR 101, good compressions break ribs, every rib in this guy's chest was already shattered. Third compression and feel his heart in my palm, I keep pushing out of habit but start looking him up and down, collarbones and arms fractured too, see his face for the first time since rolling him, what the fuck. JPEG, every bone in his face is broken, eyes either gone or too smashed into C, not a drop of blood anywhere, whole body shivers when I realize just how dead this guy is. Call it right then and there, code 914C. Get sheriff's coroners involved.
Let's just say for a while I was kind of obsessed with archiving and I printed a lot of stuff out. I had this idea of compiling all these stories into a physical book. That didn't happen, obviously. Here's a good retelling of one I remember seeing. Worked construction when I was younger, sent out to repave a residential road. It's a really rural area, early morning, not a soul in sight. I'm using my roller, going a good steady slow speed. Sleepy so I'm not really paying attention. Suddenly, this little kid runs out from the tree line. Probably 3 or 4. I don't see him until it's too late. He ran right in front of me and I squashed him. He was so small he basically sank into the thick tar. I went into shock. I stopped the rig and looked around. No one saw it. No one is screaming. Literally no one saw it happen. So I made the dumbest decision in my life. I ran over him until I couldn't see him anymore. And I kept going. Half an hour later, a woman came by absolutely hysteric and asked if we'd seen her son. Nope.x. To this day, that woman has no idea what happened to her son. He's literally right under them. I want to apologize but I can never admit I did it. It's too late now anyway.
17 years ago, little kid in the 5th grade, every day during recess me and my friend, we'll call him Kevin, would hang out during recess. Our favorite spot was a radiator, which was positioned in a far corner of the...
That fucking shit mom should have been keeping better tabs on her son. Like, freaking around heavy equipment and all that shit. Like, where the fuck was she?
Playground next to a wired fence that separated the school from a trailer park on the other side. We spent the majority of our recesses here. However, by the time we both reached 3rd grade, there was a rather large drug bust at the trailer park, causing a lot of the residents to move, leaving it mostly vacant. One trailer remains, looks rusty. Over time, more and more vacancy notices are posted by the city on the door, but nobody ever receives them. Guess everyone just stopped giving a shit about it after a while. One day me and my friend are eating lunch outside during recess. We're both facing the fence and the abandoned trailer park. Out of fucking nowhere we see a white flash from beyond the fence. Almost didn't notice it with the sun being out, but it was still noticeable. At first we think nothing of it, and don't tell anyone about it. However, over the next few weeks it started happening more and more frequently, until we would see it pretty much every day during recess. Decide to tell one of the staff helpers about it and she immediately calls the police. Didn't hear anything else about it after that. Walking home with my friend from a birthday party months down the line, we split off as we both lived on different streets. Say goodbye and tell him to log on to RuneScape when he gets home. Yeah, it was when RuneScape was pretty new. Sue me. Sitting on my computer mindlessly hours later, notice he never got on. Didn't show up to school the next day either. Odd, days pass, still haven't seen him. Word starts to spread that he's sick. Ask my parents if I can go visit him since he's sick one day. They both exchange worried glances. Later my dad tells me that he's visiting his grandparents in Chicago. I'll count. Probably one more post.
Sitting at lunch alone on top of the radiator again. It's been literally months since I've last seen Kevin, getting pretty lonely. see that fucking flash again from beyond the fence and get mad, run.
I don't know what the choice is of like fucking putting different voices on the same post. It's confusing. It's like you think like, oh, that was a short story. It's like, oh wait, this one is continuing the previous one. Like what why did they change the voice? That's just fucking stupid.
Up to the staff helper and tell her that the trailer is flashing at me again.
Loves you too,
tries
honey
to tell me
kitty.
that she already took care of it and it's just my imagination. Fuck that shit. Tell my parents about it that night. One of my dad's friends worked in the local police department. Very next day recess has to be held in the inside gym. Teachers won't tell us why. Next day the trailer is gone and the area surrounding it is surrounded with yellow tape. The fence is later redone and is boarded up instead of being chain linked. Somehow get the feeling I'll never see my friend again at this point. Years pass and I forget about it until recently when I went back home to visit my parents and we drove past my old elementary school. Trailer park is gone and a daycare sits there instead. While driving, asked my mom what really happened to Kevin. Apparently my dad's police department friend and his coworker investigated that trailer park again. And inside of the trailer that found a stash of pictures, about 20 in total, of me and my friend sitting on that fucking radiator during recess, a couple of me sitting by myself after Kevin had gone missing. It really bugged me that they had lied to me all these years, but his body was never found, so I guess there's that. Whenever I think about how close I came to being in his shoes I shudder. I don't think Till ever knew if he's dead or alive or if they found who did it. By far my most disturbing childhood experience.
Canker. When I awoke, my first thought was that I should have brushed my teeth the night before. My mouth was sticky with tar and the filth of sleep. I opened and closed my jaw regretfully, smacking my tongue as I did so. That was when I noticed the bump that had formed on the roof of my mouth. I chalked it up to poor dental hygiene and tried to put it from my mind, but, as is so often the case when we try to ignore something, the bump kept interposing itself on my thoughts. My tongue would touch the welt of its own accord, morbid fascination overpowering self-control. By nightfall, it had neither reduced in size nor become any easier to ignore, so I took a closer look. Shining a flashlight at a mirror, I was able to put a face to the annoyance. It was, as I'd surmised, little more than a red bump on the roof of my mouth. It was smaller than it felt and reminded me of nothing so much as a zit. The idea repulsed me, but lacking a better explanation, this is what I regarded it as. The damned thing kept me up at night and distracted me during the day, while seeming to grow ever larger. It took on a whitish hue and seemed to be filling with some fluid mucus perhaps, though I could think of it only as pus. After the third day, I'd had enough. Reaching my fingers into my mouth, I felt around for the bump. It was slimy and seemed to slide from my probing, but I eventually seized it between two nails and squeezed until the membrane burst. There was an awful foulness in my mouth, like decay, and I spat and rinsed it away as best I could. A portion of the blister's contents had stuck to my forefinger and I saw it was a cloudy, murky white stained by an off-yellow hue. More a gel than a liquid, I wiped it off in disgust at what had been pooling in my mouth.
Less than a month later, it returned. The same spot had swollen up during the night and it looked white.
Fucking ass, man.
Than ever,
It's just
with
getting
pale
annoying.
redness at its inflamed edges. There was no pain, just a curious numbness, and I disposed of it as I had the first. Still unable to get past the zit comparison. I wondered if maybe I wasn't doing myself some harm by not allowing it to heal on its own. When it returned in a couple weeks, I resolved to just let it be. I scrubbed my mouth day and night, but the canker grew. My tongue touched it in horrified disgust, but still I restrained myself. When it had nearly tripled its original size, my resolve crumbled. I got the flashlight once more and yawned wide into the mirror. I found the bump had become a hemisphere nearly an inch long. It was pasty white except for where veins throbbed across it. The membrane was taut with the ooze within, and at its center, there was a black dot. As I lowered the flashlight, the mirror showed me that the dot grew larger as the light receded and I had to choke back the bile that rose to my lips. I took the sharpest knife I had and stabbed the eye growing in my mouth, feeling only numbness as it, staring silently at me, burst. Catharsis. In a darkened room, deep in the latest reaches of night, a man slept. Rain danced a sad pitter-patter against the single window of the room. and the sounds of urgent winds and distant trains filtered through the windows in perfect seal. The man turned in his sleep. And, as the man slept, he dreamed. And through his dreams, a man named Michael died. Michael's arms burned and his fingers cracked, white knuckles and bleeding palms proving to be a poor distraction from the abyss that gaped beneath him. A spasm threatened to shake his grip free, but Michael restrained it with a pained grunt. Michael could feel the blood oozing from his hands, could sense the strength seeping from his overtaxed muscles. But he did not care. Any second he kept holding on was a second he was still alive. Time seemed to slow down, paralytic agony crawling in spiderwebs through his back, his shoulders, and into his arms. Muscles tore and he seemed to grow heavier by the moment. Michael let out a gasp and his fingers buckled. In an instant he was weightless, wind tearing past him as the walls of the shaft flew upward. Faster than he could believe, Michael felt the flesh of his back being torn apart. The spike formed an ugly, jagged cone, arresting the momentum of the plummet as 3 feet of bloody metal burst through his chest and gut. A spasm shook Michael's body as his spine caught and tore against the spike, and he died.
At first, Michael did not know where he was. The compartment was tight as a coffin. Its walls black and grating. Dawning horror drew the breath from his lungs as...
What the fuck is this shit? It's like, first it's like some guy poking at a pustulous sore inside his mouth, and now we're like onto like a freaking thing about Michael. Like it's all kind of like strung together with the same story. Oh wait, no. It's not.
tight as a coffin. Its walls black and grating. Dawning horror drew the breath from his lungs as
Same
he saw
shit,
the small
different
jets
rapper,
of either
right?
side of him grow orange with anticipation. He screamed. The jets erupted, pouring liquid fire into the cremator, glistening Michael's skin, causing pus and blood to ooze from every inch of his body. The red fire became white, and the weeping flesh blackened and caught fire, seeping the inferno into his organs and bones. Michael felt his eyes burst from the heat. Then, he died. He was strapped to a table. Above him, a man lowered the screaming metal teeth of a chainsaw onto Michael's neck. The buzz slowed for only an instant before pulling flesh and blood from its prey, hurling them into the air. Through the agony, Michael felt his arteries torn, his windpipe severed, his esophagus eviscerated. The sudden inability to breath throttled him as the grinding blade touched bone, protesting with a halting hiss. Then, the blade was clear, the nerve severed, and Michael decapitated. He imagined he could feel his head roll off the table as he died. Suffocation, bleeding, poison, disease, starvation, crushing, Michael died again and again, without rest or mercy or hope. And rain splashed gently on a darkened window as a man slept blissfully.
Lucid systematic dreaming. I can hold sleep at bay for only so long before it seduces me again and I find myself falling, awaking to a new dictate, some cryptic mantra that governs the impossible physics of the place and unfamiliar, frightening locations. The sky is monochromatic, though its singular hue seems to change when I do not notice it, often blue, sometimes green, occasionally black, though never red before. The sky is red. This is new. The river asserts itself next, drawing the eye even from the banks that hold it. It reflects the scarlet sky, but currents run through it, deepening the playful innocence to a velvety crimson, rich and dark and overflowing with the promise of secrets untold and pleasures unguessed. The onslaught of color recedes and allows me a blissful moment to orient myself, though only just a moment. The land is vast,
Check my
trackless,
Discord.
and unblemished. It is so verdant that it is barren and so endless that it is confining. I find it difficult to breath and have to drop to my knees as a shock of
YouTube comment management. Go to the bottom, uncheck, hold petition link, private chat messages for review. Oh. Shit, where is that? Oh man, is it all the way back in my settings? Or is it in my YouTube studio? Comment management. Yeah, probably, comments. Or let me just type in this address. Where the fuck did it take me? That's weird. Took me to this place called the Playbook? The fuck is this? Oh, hold on. There we go. Comments and ratings. Allow all comments. There we are. I was just looking in the wrong place. Or chat messages. What? Community settings. Oh, okay, here we go. There we are. I think I got it. I think I did it.
Vertigo overtakes me. It feels as though the sky opens up and the ground falls away and I will surely plummet into the gaping maw of the red void. The feeling passes. So too, do my surroundings. The open field has given way to the neon graffiti of some toy maker's demented fantasy. Blocks, dolls, and geometric shapes prowl around me like carnivores. I keep my gaze cast downward to avoid staring at the blinding light of the moon and its twisted, cavernous abyss of a grin.
The magnitude of my shift does not disturb me quite so much as the change of scale. I don't remember it.
Oh my god, this fucking series of like fucking bullshit is so fucking dumb. Okay, one
Big
more.
bottle, but the toys tower over me. They're frozen, plastic smiles full of large, white teeth. Why do toys need teeth? I wonder morbidly, ever present of the looming, growing shapes that array themselves around me so helpfully, so lovingly, so viciously. The music begins and its disjointed melody recalls childhood fears and prayers in equal turn.
Okay, I've had enough of this like guy's emo creative writing project. It's so fucking stupid. It's like what happened to like the like supposed real life accounts of like spooky shit. Like that's what I signed on for, not for this guy's like fucking shitty writing project. Fuck off, fly.
Have you ever had any creepy experiences in the woods? Share here, I can't get enough of this stuff. Greater than 2006. Camping in PA with scouts. One kid brought some airsoft guns, we head into the woods to play. Apparently the site is next to an older camp that's been abandoned, decided would be a better map and play there. Game goes on for a while, it starts getting dark. Turns a corner just in time to see one kid go into one of the cabins. Gonna go get that camping noob. Go into the cabin, it's dark but I can still see decently well. Walls are rotting and look like they probably weren't of great quality to begin with, plenty of cracks to let what's left of the sunlight in. It's a long room with a concrete floor, open door to a small room at the back. He must be in there. Slowly creep up and ready my pistol. As I walk across the room there's a growing sense of unease. Realize I can't hear anyone else, no shots, talking, nothing. Instead of backing out, I keep heading for the back room, figure I'll feel better when I catch up with my enemy. Ready up and jump into the tiny back room. No one. Room is very small, nowhere to hide and no way to exit, just tiny holes in the tiled walls where sinks would have been mounted and the door as the only light sources. Turn and sprint out of the cabin, no one else is in the camp now, but I hear voices shouting in the woods. Run through the woods in the direction of the voices until I find some of the scouts, among them the kid I thought I had followed into the cabin, who were in the process of capturing one of my teammates. Kid I was looking for tells me we've been called back to camp. When I ask him he says he wasn't in that cabin near the end of the game.
A couple times, but they tend to boil down to wander woods, stumble across building, explore building with a profound sense that something is watching us, or that something is wrong, inevitably leave, go back into woods in search of that building only to never find it again. Why is that? I know that the rational reason is because we lost track of where the building was, but I've seen so many stories where people found something, get overcome with a sense of dread, and then the building seemingly vanishing. Hell, one story I read had a guy stumble across an entire forgotten neighborhood that apparently never existed.
Greater than 8 years old. At friend's house who's out in the sticks. Hiking down the trail. Taking a shortcut. Come across a field. There's a wooden barn at the other side of the field. Ask friend about it. He's never checked it out. Come on, let's check it out. Walk over there. Main door open. There's another wall and door cutting the barn in half. Open it. Empty stables and nothing but a stick in the ground. On the stick is a deer leg. I'm about to freak out. Friend wants to check it out. Bad idea. He slowly walks there. Sticks his finger out. Touches it. Screams and starts running. I follow. Don't stop until we're halfway back to his place. I ask what made him scream. Anon, it was still warm.
Similar thing happened to me. About 13 years old. Lived
What?
on a house near a forest.
What did he touch? Oh, deer leg. Huh.
Don't stop until we're halfway back to his place. I ask what made him scream. Anon, It was still warm.
Similar thing happened to me. About 13 years old. Lived on a house near a forest. Got home with older brother, 17. Dad calls, tell us to get
Lives he
something
too,
in his
honey
cabin that
kitty?
is a little away from the main house and etc. Go there. Opens door first as brother was talking to dad of WTF he wanted. Sees broken window and a whole deer on the floor. Hey brother, come see this. Said that it maybe got scarred, jumped of the window and died of broken rib or something. Brother goes in, move the dead deer. There is a big chunk of it missing. Anon, the bite is fresh. We run as much as we can. Get locked in home and calls our dad. Dad gets in with uncle. Turns out there was a huge bear sleeping some 50 meters away from the cabin. Dad and uncle killed it.
I've never told
Crazy.
these stories before except to the friends I experienced both stories with. They may or not coincide. If anyone has an idea of what on earth happened in these, please let me know. Going to give some background to help. These happened within a month of each other. First occurred about early December, the other very early January. The area is Axton, Virginia. If anyone is familiar with the area, it's just a multitude of woods and open tobacco land. Also, not going to greenest cause, doing this from terrible phone with dying keyboard. First storied me and two friends. I was 15, they were 18, 19. Nothing to do, it's winter break, some decide to go explore and smoke some weed. So we walk up the road about a mile and see a old cabin building, extremely common in the area, surrounded by woods. Heli seclusive.jpg. Go and start looking around at standard old cabin. Half is a tobacco dry house and rest is a small stable, most likely for a cow and some chickens. Building is old and know where to sit, so we decide to go to the back of the building and roll up there. Go around the building and see bones everywhere, recent bones, I mean littered everywhere in a 20 by 20 foot area, and they were all relatively new, so we figure screw this, must be a bear's home or a pack of wolves, but it's about noon, so whatever, smoke and talk then leave. Well, we decide the next day to go back, and that's when the weird starts. Get back behind building about same time as the day before and nearly all the bones are gone except for the larger ones. He'll never forget it, they had been arranged to spell something, 2 words, I will use X for characters we couldn't recognize, KRVCOLRMK. Nope the heck out of there and never returned. Second story, staying at friend's house, we get bored at night
What
and
did it
decide we are
spell?
gonna sneak out.
KRVCOLRMK.
Out and smoke. It's about 1 a.m. Everyone in the house is asleep but us. So go outside. In friend's front yard is an old slave cabin / tobacco dry house that they used as a shed, and start looking for a place hidden from view of the house and decide beside the shed would be best. We get over there and notice a light is on in the back of the building where the tools are, so we look through the window to see my friend's dad there, which confused us because he was a trucker and had a run that day and wasn't going to wake up till 3 to go in. What made it more odd is that he was rummaging through the tools, and this was a man that kept everything organized. He knew where every tool he needed was. So for some reason education decided to throw a rock in there to maybe spook his dad and get a laugh. Throw a rock and it hits the wall that he is facing. Immediately stops rummaging and stays completely still, staring into the tool drawer he was going through. After about a minute he resumes going through the tools, so we throw another rock, said hit this time though. His dad grabs the drawer and hurls it at the wall in our direction. We freak out and run back to the house. As soon as we get to the porch, his dad steps out of the house saying, "What the hell are you boys?" and stares at the shed. We look back at the shed and whatever it was that looked like his dad is there on the step staring at us. It throws its head back and releases the oddest sound I've ever heard, not a bark or howl but like a grumble from a stomach, and runs faster than anyone I've ever seen straight into the woods. Those are my stories. We all still talk but never about those incidents.
This is the tale of 2 boys in the woods. It's not my own tale, but it's a true tale. Some would say, no, not true, that's not how it happened. But it's how the other guy, the one who lived, explained it. They had been visiting a small place in Norway, about 350 people lived there at the time. I lived there. They were city boys, wanted to see the country, the woods, and enjoy a bit of beer and women. At one point, a third guy had joined them in their endeavor to enjoy themselves. Later, it was told that none of them knew who he was or where he'd come from, just that it felt right to have him there, like they had been missing a piece of a puzzle and that the guy was that piece. Let us call the two friends Gare and John, and the third guy who no one remembers even seeing any more for Seb. John began feeling ill one night. He told Gare that Seb was acting all weird and that he felt sick being near him. Gare laughed it off, but John became more reclusive and apparently refused to have Seb there anymore. Gare and John fought that day, and Gare told John to stay in the cabin and be sick all he wanted, because Gare was heading out to drink. However, while Gare was drinking, John joined him. It was about 27 below Celsius, Amarifags and icy that day. John explained he didn't want to sit at home, that he was sorry for his behavior. When they left, John didn't get his jacket back, claiming he was fine without it. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You see, Gare swore John came home with him, that they shared a meal, and that John told Gare that Seb had left. Gare thought nothing of it until he was woken by a knocking at the cabin door. It was the cops telling him that John had been found floating under the ice under the bridge, and that his clothing had been found neatly folded in a crossing by a taxi driver, his shoes on top. Apparently John had been dead for about 12 hours, while Gare knew he had spent time with John within that time, rang and told the police so. The police figured he was in shock, denial, that sort of thing. But Gare was adamant. There were 2 plates on the table, and John's bed had been slept in. But when Gare told them about Seb, they became very serious and began asking questions about Seb, how he spoke, how he walked and talked, that sort of thing. Gare willingly explained everything happened to Seb, and was carted off to the mental hospital, charged for murder but apparently too sick to stand trial. If I think back to that night, it snowed heavily. And the taxi driver found the clothing free of snow, neatly folded. If John died that early, there is no way those clothes wouldn't be covered with snow and impossible to see. So, what's your guess? A skinwalker seemingly gliding into their friendship seamlessly? Or just schizophrenia?
Screw green text cause lazy and on phone. I'm bored as hell and decided to go hunting. Woods are not far from my house. It's a decent sized chuck of woods, couple thousand acres, but not really a remote area. There are building new subdivisions and shit around here. Wasn't really going out to do any serious hunting. I just wanted an excuse to get at the house and walk. So I take my rifle and a couple joints, get in my truck and head out. Spend a couple hours or so just walking around aimlessly, toking and spacing out. Decide to try to actually shoot something, so I sit down and lean up against a big oak tree. Just chill and watch a couple squirrels in the trees, waiting for one of them to give me a shot. They don't and eventually just vanish. I get bored quickly, so light up another joint. That's when I hear a ton of noise behind me. Sounds like several people or large animals moving through the woods. I'm totally stoned at this point and paranoid, so I put my joint out and start peeking around the tree to see what's up. See about 6 to 7 teenagers walking in my direction. They stop about 20 meters from my spot and start lighting up cigarettes and cracking open beer cans. Now I'm pissed as heck cause they ruined my peace. Wait about 20 minutes deciding if I should just get up and move to a new spot. Finally decide to mess with them. I have a rifle, remember. I unloaded the magazine into a big tree in front of me. The kids were only 20 meters from me. They noped the crap out of their screaming like a bunch of little girls. Went over to their spot, found 2 unopened cans of beer, drank one, shot the other and went home.
Wasn't in the woods but more so in the middle of nowhere. I've posted it here before. So for context, my dad's side of the family has a lot of Native American blood. Yaqui Indian to be exact, found in northern Mexico and Arizona. My great-great-grandmother passed away a long time ago, but will still visit the tribal area to get stuff. Greater than 2007. Was still a kid at the time. Brother was in Oregon with my grandma at the time. Grandpa decides to go visit. We tell my mom and dad and he convinces them to let me come. We keep driving and eventually cross the border. After a while we're in bumfuck nowhere. Not even a gas station for miles. I'm asleep in the back of the van. Boom boom boom. I wake to the sound of gunshots right outside of the van. Grandpa climbs into the driver's seat and starts speeding off before you even closes the door. At this point I'm almost frozen. I look back behind me and see a very faint outline of a humanoid figure illuminated by the tail lights. We eventually make it and my grandpa makes me promise to never tell anyone in my family. He never told me who or what it was. He never left the house without that little Raven Arms 25 ACP pistol, and it probably saved our life.
This happened to me when I was 8 years old. Explore woods with grandma. Stumble upon an old man looking about 70. There's a small path near him. He's collecting some strawberries. We join him for a minute. Only my grandma talks to him since I'm shy AF. We continue on the path. We find a cabin clearly abandoned long time ago. Grandma enters cause I'm too scared. She exits the cabin with a terrified look on her face. She says we need to leave. We get back home. 5 years later when I'm 13 she tells me the old man told her that he lives in the cabin we found, and that in the cabin she saw exactly that man's dead body.
Greater than 14.
Fuck.
At summer camp. We were at a private campground by a lake. Dusk. Boat pulls up by our dock. Was too far away, but a guy got out of the boat, and even from the distance I was, 300 to 400 feet, we looked strange. One of the counselors walks up to him. Doesn't even get halfway to the end of the dock before turning around and running. Talks to other counselors. We all get told to get into our vans immediately and go, don't even bother getting your stuff. We pile in and take off. Stop off at the town store. Cops show up. Cops escort us back to campground. Wildlife rangers are there. They're talking with the counselors. Get told we were to rearrange all our tents in a circle around the fire. Greater than 2 ranger trucks are camped by our tents with armed rangers patrolling. The counselors also patrol during the night. Morning, we eat, pack up and leave. Counselors never explained what happened. Some of the kids said some of their clothes were missing but none of their valuables. Weird as shit.
Okay, I think this will be it for tonight. I've been streaming for over 2 hours. Made quite a bit of progress. Didn't complete this piece today as I was hoping. Just getting too hung up on the details and just trying to make that hair look good. And I think I did it. So now I'm going to move on to the other details. Still do the lacing in the shorts, and there's still some shading I want to do with the face, and I still got that plate of flapjacks to do and the tail. So we'll get to that sometime tomorrow, but tomorrow's going to be somewhat of a full day. I have to leave early in the morning with my mom to go get new tires on the Escalade, and I also have class in the afternoon, and I also have homework to do that's due on Wednesday. Fuck. I guess with all that, I'm not going to be able to finish this piece tomorrow either. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for participating in chat for all those who did. It's always awesome interacting with all of you. As always, my lovely moderator Melody keeping me company. And Dasco Draws dropped by. Awesome. And to all the lurkers who are watching, and to all the people who are watching later, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell. And if you really liked what I'm doing, feel free to donate some monies to my Ko-fi page. The link is in the description section below. You can donate any monetary amount. Either one of those options will be very much appreciated. So, until next time, this has been Johnston Blackhorse, the one and only, and I shall check y'all later. Sweet! Bye.